So welcome to mental health resiliency during times of disaster and recovery. And we're going to get on with our presentation today. So most of you are familiar with this, but I did post a survey in the chat box. It's a demographic survey so that we can fulfill our recording requirements. So if you would complete that while I cover this slide, I would appreciate it. Again, you can just click on the link. It's going to ask you if you're male, female, etc. But this particular slide, as part of land-grant universities, cooperative extension institutions receive support and funding from various entities, including federal funds. We adhere to federal policies regarding non-discrimination, and we make our programs accessible to all. And again, please complete that link in the chat box as I move forward. So this presentation introduces the publication you see on the screen, Extension and Mental Health Resiliency During Times of Disaster and Recovery, which is available on the Eden Resource Dashboard. It was written by a multi-state team from the Eden 4-H and Family and Consumer Sciences Committee, and it was published in 2020. You should all have a copy so that you can follow along. So if you scan that QR code, I will also post that into the chat box for you if you wanted to pull that up as well. And let me take care of that. And there is the publication. So this publication is a 7-part publication. It's designed to help extension professionals who work in county, state, federal, and tribal offices to take care of themselves. This presentation highlights key concepts and tips and where to find more information. So we're going to give you an overview of the publication. The first 4 parts of the publication will help you understand and recognize high-level disaster stress, while the last 3 parts focus on tools to equip emotional toolkit with activities and strategies to manage stress and develop a positive outlook. And so here with our introduction, and we have part 1. And so with more frequent disasters, community members experience stress. Extension professionals and disaster volunteers interact with those affected by disasters and may be more susceptible to the effects of trauma of others. Professionals and volunteers can benefit from trainings like psychological first aid that teach participants how to provide basic care, comfort, and support to individuals experiencing disaster and stress. And so when we start talking about our brain, your brain builds cognitive structures. It's called schemas from our everyday experiences that help us perceive reality. These include our personal beliefs, assumptions, and expectations about ourselves, others, and the world around us. When disasters strike, schemas are negatively altered. For some folks, this modification is temporary, especially if they have developed skills and resources for better resiliency. Professionals and volunteers who develop resiliency skills are better able to keep their schemas intact and help colleagues and clientele work through their emotional stress. They will also be able to recognize and encourage professional help for those who are struggling. So here on the screen, here you have 4 different types of stress. You can see there's burnout, compassion fatigue, secondary traumatic stress, and vicarious stress. And we're going to talk a little bit more about disaster stress as we get into part 7. Now, in part 1, you can explore brief summaries of 4 interrelated themes of vicarious trauma research. And so on this slide, you see the results of 2 studies which focus on emotional and physical reactions to traumatic work and coping with emotional impact and trauma of work. And so I'm not going to run through each of these individually because it is in the series. So you can look at the publication and dig into those specific areas. And so we continue on this screen, and here we see the study results of 2 other projects, one which being the process of schematic changes and relating factors and the impact of trauma work changes, schemas, and behavior. Now, as an organization, it's important that we develop a system of support and culture of compassion. And again, in doing so, we'll have healthier employees. So part one includes tips to reduce the risk of burnout and secondary traumatic stress and vicarious stress. So now trauma challenges schemas and behaviors by triggering a cognitive process that can result in no changes, positive changes, or negative changes. Despite sudden increases in stress following disasters, some people who are directly exposed to trauma cope well and even report positive outcomes. Positive changes may include a heightened awareness of our own good fortune, a strengthened sense of optimism, and a gained appreciation for community connections and spiritual paths. Predictions of growth include higher levels of a sense of coherence, empathy, and social and organizational support. A positive response to disaster trauma is especially important for responding extension and disaster professionals and volunteers. To experience growth, disaster workers need longer engagement with clients so that there will be an opportunity to experience and witness the recovery process and growth. Extension may be there long after FEMA and non-government organizations leave and participate in the growth and recovery of a community while reaping the benefits of positive growth resulting from a shared disaster. So let's move into part two. So for here, it's helpful to understand the brain's response to a disaster to better understand our own thoughts and behaviors as well as those around us. Following a traumatic event, we also need to understand how continued high levels of stress affect our brain and body. This knowledge helps us understand why we and others behave and think the way we do long after a trauma, or why we may become physically ill or emotionally drained even years after the disaster. So here we see what happens when stress levels suddenly elevate. When a threat is perceived by the brain, it alerts the adrenaline gland, which responds by producing the first of a major stress hormones, adrenaline. Adrenaline is that hormone that promotes the fight, flight, or freeze response and is believed to have evolved to ensure our safety and survival. As the adrenaline steps up, the heart rate and pulse begins to race, sending extra blood into the muscles and organs. The bronchial tubes in the lungs then dilate to hold more oxygen to feed the brain, which helps keep us alert. Next, the brain releases what we call natural painkillers, also called endorphins. This hormone is what allows us to respond quickly to the threat and not feel pain resulting from injuries sustained from the flight, fight, or freeze reaction. The final hormone to be released is cortisol. Receptors in the brain latch onto the cortisol, which tell the brain that the body can shut off the biomechanical response to the threat. The body then starts to return to normal functioning levels. The stress response occurring in the body also affects the brain. The human body has a finely tuned stress reaction designed to stimulate a quick, life-saving response. It only takes 12 milliseconds for the stress response to reach the amygdala, the most primitive part of your brain. This happens when the amygdala becomes the incident commander and takes control of the situation. It takes twice as much time, 24 seconds, for information to reach the prefrontal cortex that you see, where the higher thinking occurs, such as reasoning. The amygdala is now in command. The prefrontal cortex is regulated to a support function, and real thinking becomes difficult. Therefore, we are often unable to think before we act. When there is continued stress, such as earthquake aftershocks, the brain receptors no longer latch to the cortisol. This results in the brain and body being hypervigilant, a state of increased alertness. In this state, we may be unable to think clearly. We may have extreme thoughts, pay constant attention to possible threats, and have an intense and prolonged drive to take action, or we simply zone out where we lose concentration for no apparent reason. In addition to increased levels of cortisol, endorphins, adrenaline, and other hormones become harmful and can overload the body's systems. Over time, the increased levels can damage the cardiovascular, immune, and nervous systems, leading to physical illness such as high blood pressure, heart disease, and diabetes, and other mental health challenges, including post-traumatic stress disorder, secondary traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, and/or suicidal ideation. So disasters can cause sudden increase in a person's stress level. Stress is the stimulus that elevates a person's state of arousal and readiness. Stress can be good. For example, a manageable level of stress improves health and performance by sharpening our attention and mobilizing our bodies to respond. However, at some point, stress arousals reach a maximum level and begins to negatively impact our health, both physically and mentally. Thankfully, most people experience only mild stress and are resilient, so they can bounce back from psychological disturbances caused by extreme events. This knowledge can be used to determine if we are in a healthy state of mind and able to assist others following a disaster if we plan to step aside and take care of ourselves. So now we're getting into phase 3. And so as we turn into phase 3, there are 4 phases of a disaster. And so I was kind of very close to this one as the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Maryland collapsed several months ago in the Baltimore Harbor. So there's a picture of the bridge itself. So when you think of the heroic stage of the 4 stages, that's when the disaster first occurs and community members pull together and assist in response efforts. Actions take the form of altruism, that is providing shelter, food, and other forms of support. People are generally compliant and willing to act on behalf of their community. The heroic phase can last anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. So this is when that initial incident occurs. Then we have the honeymoon phase. So during the honeymoon phase, the community can be inundated with outside agencies arriving for help. Everybody wants to be there. So this includes media outlets, visits by top politicians and celebrities. There you see our mayor in these pictures. And then you're also going to see a lot of relief agencies come in. The community feels this sense of support and hopefulness that rebuilding will happen quickly. So unfortunately, these relief agencies are geared towards a short-term response. So then when we get into this phase of disillusionment, and so during this phase, the full context of the long-term effects are finally realized. Conflicts about recovery strategies may surface. There could be the blaming of individuals and agencies. And so in our particular case, you know, there's like a new normal with traffic patterns that a lot of roads are congested in the Baltimore area because that bridge is no longer available. So high levels of stress are often the result of changes caused by the disaster, and having mental health resources available is critical during this time, especially for those coping with the depression, substance abuse, or post-traumatic stress disorder. So now we get into the rebuilding and reconstruction phase. So this is the final phase, and it's about finding what the new normal is. So during the rebuilding and reconstruction phase, you may see repairs to homes. In our case, rebuilding a bridge. New businesses may occur, and the economy begins to recover, and new community routines are formed. And the thing about this rebuilding and reconstruction phase, especially when you talk about our example and many other disasters that we deal with, you know, this can take a long time. So successful rebuilding and reconstruction are often determined by the availability of resources, especially economic resources. It also requires social resources. Understanding and recognizing the phases of disaster underscores the need for awareness of community reactions and having mental health resources available to facilitate continued recovery. These include 3 types of social resources that you can see on the screen: social supports, and here are things such as common interest groups and get-togethers with friends and family, which may have been interrupted, and finding new ways to maintain and repair those important networks. Mental health assistance, which needs to be available as people's grief changes. As the community evolves in response to disaster anniversaries, continue to watch for signs of those struggling with mental health well-being, as they may surface during difficult times or different times. Connecting folks to mental health care can be critical as the response continues. Community leadership. We also need to encourage community members to volunteer, to work together, and to get involved in a mission and purpose of community recovery to give them a sense of control over the impact of the disaster. So now we're jumping into part 4. And as you can see here, disasters can, of course, cause high levels of stress. Over time, reactions can disappear, stay the same, get better, or even get worse. Some signs and symptoms are recognizable. Compounded stressors from disaster can cause disaster stress. Noticing them, you can take actions to minimize stress. You can improve your resiliency now by taking actions for stress management, practicing self-care, and developing a positive outlook, which are prescribed in later parts of the publication. We need to develop resiliency and manage stress now to prevent serious psychological effects such as PTSD, depression, anxiety, and substance abuse from prolonged disaster events. Here in this part of the publication, there are 5 charts that provide tips to recognize high-level stressors. People with high-level stress may show overwhelming or pervasive or less efficient or more negative thought patterns. Take note that changes in behavior can signal acute stress. The information is also provided about psychological symptoms that don't have a medical explanation. In addition, disasters can cause a person to question their view of the world and what they believe to be true. And what we need to remember is that disasters are not all created equal, and the level of disruption also often determines its impact on the individuals and the communities around them. Disasters most likely cause psychological effects, which are characterized by extreme widespread damage to property, serious ongoing financial problems caused by human intent, or injuries, loss of life, or trauma impacting human life, resulting in other folks' high level of trauma. So now we're going to engage in self-care for your own personal preparedness. And so some of those things include physical preparedness, such as developing an emergency kit, a family plan. All those things can be empowering. And strengthening your emotional preparedness with stress management activities and developing positive coping skills. You also need to be aware of emotional stress or distress in colleagues and clientele. Becoming familiar with local resources for mental health services, such as employee assistance programs and public health resources. Have the courage to approach others gently. And so now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Linda, who's going to take it from here.
Thanks, Jesse. Next, we're going to review part 5 to explore some stress management techniques. So stress is considered normal and can be beneficial when endorphins are released after successfully managing a challenging situation. It can make us feel energized when we get a report completed, negotiate a misunderstanding, or speak in front of a large group. But the amount and type of stress matter. Beyond the fight, flight, or freeze reaction that can help keep our bodies safe, there is little benefit in stress caused by a disaster or other traumatic stress. The byproduct of this type of long-term stress is called chronic stress. The negative side effects can be related to disaster-associated injury, damage to or destruction of housing, interruption or loss of job and income, separation from family and social connections, or a loss of a sense of control or power and feelings of helplessness. These effects can create secondary stressors. When stressors continue to pile up and go unchecked along with other challenges, this may result in toxic stress. Our brains love to be busy, and thinking is one of its favorite things to do. It will even wake you up to keep you thinking. We can really get stressed when our brains think about what we could have done or what we should be doing, and most of these cannot be done at the same time. We can teach our brains to take a break. Your brain is going to rebel, but once it learns how to take a break, it will be much more cooperative. So let's review the directions for basic breathing. Get comfortable in a chair with your back fully supported. Have your feet flat on the floor with arms, legs, and hands uncrossed. And with your eyes closed or open, whichever is more relaxing for you, take a slow, deep breath in through your nose with your mouth closed. Then we're going to hold, we're going to breathe in slowly to the count of 5, extending your abdomen, and then pause for 5 seconds, holding it. And then exhale slowly through your mouth to the count of 7. So let's do this 3 times. You're going to breathe, remember to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. So let's take that breath in and hold it and exhale. Breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. One more time. Breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. How did this feel? Your brain had to concentrate on this activity so it couldn't think about those other things. By just being in the present moment, many folks feel some level of stress begin to drain or have a reduction of the feeling of tension. Practice each day. Relaxing through breathing can become routine through practice and will come naturally when you find yourself feeling stressed. If you're feeling lightheaded or dizzy while you're doing this, either rest or breathe out more slowly. You can interrupt stress by bringing your thoughts into the present with a variety of tools such as the ones listed here. In addition to an additional publication, Survival Basics Stress Less, Tips for Handling Fear and Anxiety, provides more helpful tips that can help you reduce or manage stress. This quote from Leonardo da Vinci challenges people to maximize the use of each of their sentences. The average person looks without seeing, listens without hearing, touches without feeling, eats without tasting, moves without physical awareness, inhales without awareness of odor or fragrances, and talks without thinking. Practice can bring you strength. So I think about these, and this was true in these early times, and it's still true today. Let's take a look at part 6 of this resource, where we focus on self-care. The authors of this part gently guide you through a process to analyze your own self-care and to help you see where you might make adjustments. Learning and practicing the skills for self-care, both physically and mentally, is one way in which we can be at our best when called on to assist our colleagues and community clientele. Let's take a look at the basics of self-care skills and self-care during a disaster response. Self-care is defined as any activity that we intentionally do to take care of our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health. Self-care activities should be scheduled and planned for on a regular basis. The goal of self-care is to ensure that we can keep our personal stress levels low when entering the heightened stage of stress caused by a disaster. So try these self-care tips. Say no. Make a list of activities you no longer enjoy or do not wish to be involved in. Saying no to these activities may increase productivity, minimize stress, help prioritize your commitments. Eat a healthy, nutritious diet and get enough sleep. The benefits of adequate sleep include a healthy mind and body, reduced stress and improved mood, and clearer thinking, leading to better decisions. Explore stress management techniques to find the ones that work for you. Practicing will help strengthen your response when stress increases. Do at least one enjoyable activity a day. In addition, exercise every day. Physical activities can range from walking with friends to strength training. Keep up with medical care and routine checkups. Other ways to think about reaching your goals are spend time with loved ones and maintain a strong social support system. Having a network of supportive relationships helps to buffer stress and can also help you recognize your stress levels. Do at least one relaxing activity a day and connect with your spirituality, whether it be a higher power or a deeper meaning of life. Look for opportunities to laugh. A good laugh has great short-term effects. When you start to laugh, it not only lightens your load mentally, but it also induces physical changes in your body. Laughing enhances your intake of oxygen-rich air, stimulates your heart, lungs, and muscles, and increases the endorphins, the feel-good hormone, that are released by your brain. Also consider developing positive coping skills, such as helpful thinking, honing your sense of humor, and recognizing and developing ways of positively dealing with the expected and the unexpected. So self-care takes practice. So let's try some laughter yoga. If you could, please stand up and move to a space where you can swing your arms in front. We're going to do something, we're going to bend over here. So I need you now, though, to reach up to the sky, stretching and pulling yourself up high, high, high. And in a moment, you are going to take a big breath and begin a belly laugh while you swing your arms down and bending over, trying to touch the floor. There you go. Let's try that. After you're completely exhaled, stand upright again. Okay, now let's do a real belly laugh this time instead of that little chuckle that you just did. Okay, one more time. Stand up, reach for the sky, start laughing, swing your arms down, and stand up again. And now one more time, a really big belly laugh. How are you feeling now? You did a great job. I wish I could actually hear you guys doing that. The heightened stress levels caused by a disaster can lead to unhelpful thoughts and behaviors such as using alcohol or drugs to cope, working too much, extreme avoidance of thinking or talking about the event, or extreme withdrawal from family, friends, or coworkers, engaging in violence or conflict, overeating or failing to eat, engaging in risky behavior, placing blame on others, withdrawing from previously enjoyed activities, or not practicing your self-care. People who develop the habit of taking care of themselves and practicing self-care methods build resiliency, which is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. Additional stress management techniques to consider are listed in detail in Part 6. See suggestions for work adjustments, hydration and nutrition, sleep, as well as processing your emotions. So how can we help each other? Consider pairing up with another responder or colleague to support each other and monitor each other's stress. Identify each other's strengths and weaknesses to create an efficient and effective team. Keep an eye on each other and watch for emotional and physical safety concerns. Share when you have a concern. Listen to each other and share experiences and feelings. Acknowledge tough situations and recognize accomplishments, even small ones. Help each other with basic needs, such as sharing supplies and transportation. Monitor each other's workloads and encourage taking breaks. Share opportunities for stress relief. Research indicates the importance of preparing physically and emotionally for disasters before they occur. It is key to develop and practice healthy self-care habits to support recovery from disaster stress and trauma. The emotional stress resulting from a disaster can lead to sadness, hopelessness, and a general lack of energy. Planning and doing positive and meaningful activities can help restore normalcy and give back a sense of control. In fact, developing a positive outlook can lead to growth even after experiencing a traumatic event. Developing a positive outlook in life is important for everyone and will be much needed skill following a disaster. Success lies in developing or strengthening our ability to change our perspective. The awesome thing about perspective is that we can learn to expand and change our view. Now let's start to apply perspective to our attitude and outlook on life. The two photos on the slide are the same. The horse picture has been rotated 180 degrees counterclockwise to provide a different perspective, showing us a frog. How do we cope with common feelings or emotions like being sad, withdrawn, or depressed that occur following a disaster? Negative experiences tend to cause upsetting emotions, while positive experiences can lead to upbeat emotions. Looking at it another way, our personalities consist of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Humans are complex beings. Feelings such as sadness and hopelessness resulting from a disaster can come from three different but related controls in the human brain: emotions, thoughts, or behaviors. As depicted in this diagram, each area affects the other two areas. Often, when people feel down or depressed, the first thing they attempt to change is their feelings. After all, the goal is to feel better. Feelings are the more difficult of these three areas to control and change. Simply telling yourself or someone else to feel better does not work. Altering your thoughts and behaviors can change the way you feel. Learning how to accomplish this leads to resiliency, or the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. So let's delve into the area of behavior as a way to change our feelings. To promote positive emotions, a good place to start is doing an activity daily that brings you enjoyment. This is one self-care tip that promotes a healthy mental well-being. A note of caution: you may find an activity is not as enjoyable now as it was before the disaster, but doing the activity will help rebuild a sense of control and well-being. Over time, for most people, the enjoyment level will return. It is important to note that if doing the previously enjoyable activity continues to be a chore, consider seeing a mental health professional.
Linda, it looks like you're still on mute there.
There, okay, I'm sorry, I got muted. Let's see. Do you want me to do that slide again?
Sounds good.
Okay. To promote positive emotions, a good place to start is doing an activity daily that brings you enjoyment. This is one self-care tip that promotes a healthy mental well-being. A note of caution: you may find an activity is not as enjoyable now as it was before the disaster, but doing the activity will help you rebuild a sense of control and well-being. Over time, for most people, the enjoyment level will return. It's important to note that if doing the previously enjoyable activity continues to be a chore, consider seeing a mental health professional, as this can be a sign of deeper psychological trauma. Some people struggle with distressing disaster-related thoughts as they try to adjust to post-disaster circumstances. Unfortunately, negative thoughts maintain negative emotions. Identifying and practicing more helpful ways of thinking can improve mood and reduce the intensity of distressing emotional and physical reactions. Here's something to consider. Thoughts influence feelings. For example, angry thoughts can produce angry feelings, while thoughts of an exciting event can produce happy feelings. Thoughts are words, sentences, or mental pictures that run through our minds. Feelings are the emotions we feel in our bodies when we think about something. Thoughts lead to emotions and feelings. How we think about ourselves and the things that have happened to us shapes how we feel and behave. Although we cannot change what has happened to us, we can change the focus of our thoughts. We can change them in a way that can make us feel more hopeful and less overwhelmed. This can pave the way for more effective coping. Take a look at some examples of negative thought response on the left and positive thought response on the right, and the resulting emotions from a flooding scenario. So in the negative way, I'm going to lose everything. Where's all the help? Where are those sandbaggers? And you can see these emotions that are developed from those thought processes. And on the right, I guess I was considering remodeling. The timeline just maybe moved up. And the important thing here is that we are all safe and we can replace things that we lost. And here our emotions are more positive and hopeful. Focus on becoming aware of your unhelpful thoughts and negative self-talk. Instead of thinking, I sure messed that one up, you might think, well, that was a tough situation, but I did some things well. Or instead of saying to yourself, why did you say that? You're such an idiot. You might say to yourself, maybe there was a better way to say that. However, it did get the point across. We rarely take time to examine what we are thinking, so unhelpful thoughts can happen automatically. Start to pay attention to unhelpful thoughts and change your perspective, twist it 180 degrees, okay, to be helpful, create helpful, positive thought. Developing a positive outlook on situations that life sends your way leads to resiliency. The common phrase, turning lemons into lemonade, is one that helps us remember that a change of perspective in our thoughts can lead to a more positive outlook. The author of Modern Mindfulness, Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, says, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. Today, we learned how to increase our resiliency and readiness to serve when needed, so we can be better equipped for increased stress. Additionally, you should be able to provide basic care, comfort, and support with some basic strategies for your clientele or colleagues who are experiencing disaster-related stress. And with practice, you'll be more resourceful in your daily activities and more quickly able to respond when others are in need. So I am going to post a link to the survey that we would love to have you fill out. And it's also with this QR code. This overview was designed to introduce you to the publication Extension and Mental Health Resiliency During Times of Disaster and Recovery. Please let us know whether you found this method of engagement through our PowerPoint helpful by taking this short survey with a small QR code or use the live link that's in the chat. Short sentences or a few phrases in the text box are really important to us, and they can give us a better feel for your experience here today. If you're interested in sharing this publication to help others learn about disaster stress and how to manage it, there's a link there that can take you to the, on the left, can take you to the website. This slide deck for today's presentation will be made available to use later this year. Once we review your feedback from the survey, we hope you might share them with colleagues or interested community partners such as emergency managers, first responders, or other agencies or organizations active in disaster. Well, thanks for joining Jesse and I today. And we wonder, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, you can either put them in the chat, or I think you could probably, if we can get you off mute, you could also ask those directly to them. I just want to say, one of the people that, well, several of the people that worked on this program, it's been a few years, but they did an outstanding job. And and Glenda and them have just carried it on. And so I applaud you. It's really a well-developed program and has really great information to share. And this would be something that, if you have an opportunity to share this, the link to that webinar with other colleagues that you work with or organizations.
Thank you. I have a question. Is this something that also the other sessions would be able to be viewed afterwards? This is the only one that I'll be able to see in person, but I was wondering if there are if there's an availability to see the recordings after since I have meetings at the same time as the other sessions.
Are you talking about other professional development sessions?
Yeah, the other professional
Yes.
development sessions.
Yes, they're all recorded and they're put on Connect or on our YouTube channel. So yes, they're all available.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always want everybody to have an opportunity to maybe review them again, Robin said there's such important information. We forget to take care of ourselves as take care of others, and that is exactly true. I want to say thank you to you two. You did an outstanding job, put a lot of work into this. And the committee, the PD committee, is always looking for webinars. So if anybody on this call today, this webinar, or any other time that you might think of someone else that might have a good webinar, we would love for you to submit that as a webinar for whatever month that you might feel that it would be appropriate for you. We're always looking for good ones, and we know that there's all of you have something to offer. So we want you to make sure that you submit those. And so the submission form is actually in the chat box. So,
Connie, can I share one more thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I belong to our state Emergency Managers Association, and at their conference, I did this presentation and had a pretty good crowd in the room, standing room only, and in a breakout session. And afterwards, a lot of people came up to me and said, "Thank you so much." They really felt like they had gotten some benefit out of the presentation. We also handed out the booklets. And then during our wildfire fairs that we've been doing here this spring, I kind of cornered some of the first responders leadership, and I said, "Are you guys interested in a presentation on this publication?" And they go, "Yes." So our intention is to get this presentation posted as a resource on Eden for you all to use with your sphere of influence.
Very good. Oh, that'd be great. Yes, I was going to say, I think we should all look to what other organizations, departments, things like that we know that we think could benefit from this. And, if you get an opportunity to present at a conference, that's even better. Any other comments or questions? Remember the survey that is posted in the chat at the very top. You can fill that out now, but it also will be sent out with the recording.
And I just want to point out, we're talking about two different surveys here today. So the one that I posted that says Oregon State Qualtrics in the link is the one that's going to give us data for our project here to see what your benefit is, okay? And how you might share it, okay?
Hey, Reagan, would you answer the question, where can I find this on YouTube? just to make sure I'm giving them the right information.
Yes, I had to look it up myself. I couldn't remember what the handle was called. So it's
Okay.
at Eden Videos on YouTube. But if
Okay.
you type in Extension Disaster Education Network, you'll probably get to the channel that way too.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else for today? I think I've covered all my duties, if I can remember here. And if anybody wants to, that's an Eden delegate, would like to join the Professional Development Committee, we would really invite you to do that. It takes a lot of people to run committees and all the work that goes into them, and so we're more than happy to take anyone who is interested in that. Send me an email. Here, I'll put it in the chat. That way you'll know what my email is, but please contact me.
And I'll just share that also the people that are watching the recording, these links are still live, okay?
Good, great. All right, well, if there's nothing else, we don't have the July webinar locked down yet, so I can't promote that. I wish I could. Hopefully we'll be able to get one that we are hoping that has been kind of set up, but not for sure. So we'll see what we can do by July. Again, Glenda and Jesse, thank you so much. It was great presentation and really, really good information. So I think a lot of us will get a lot of information that we can pass on to others as well. So
Thank you for the opportunity, Connie and
Mhm.
Reagan, for coordinating this whole thing with us.
oh,
We appreciate it.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, without further ado, then I think I'm going to close it down for today, if that's okay.